Thanks for coming again to our last session.
I know.
Yeah, like I do at every session, I want to remind you that this session is being taped. I'm a graduate student at Houston Christian University, and this taping is part of a class, which means I'm still a student therapist. At any time, my professor or classmates might see this video. We are all committed to a code of ethics, and that means that we don't discuss what we see and learn from these videos outside of our safe classroom environment. What is said here stays here unless I'm ordered by a court at some point to disclose it. You would, of course, be the first person I would discuss it with if that were to happen. And I want to remind you about my duty to report if there is ever a time where you express suicidal ideation or actual threats upon your life or anyone else. Also, I have a duty to report any concerns I might have or come up within the context of our conversations about any child or elder abuse that you are a part of. And these are all part of my duty to the code of ethics as a professional. What questions do you have about any of this?
None, really. I'm just happy to participate.
Okay, and I also appreciate you signing the disclosure statement again so that you in writing understand what we've just discussed. So thank you. So I want to hop into it today and have you tell me about your progress and what's been happening since we started the timed activities for improving your focus.
Sure. So basically, it was difficult at first, and to be kind of funny and kind of weird, but I actually did use an egg timer and set it for 15 minutes, the one from our kitchen. The expense reports, as I mentioned, were always difficult for me. And so your idea with the timer and setting 15 minutes, setting it aside and scheduling it really was effective. In fact, so much so that I've improved significantly, and I'm actually ahead. I have a way of just setting the timer and setting it and scheduling it, and everything is really, really working well. And I'm very pleased with how that turned out. In fact, I'm actually using it for other parts of my life as well. For instance, my kids who are adult kids, 34 and 36, we don't talk frequently. And it's not because we don't want to, it's just we're so busy, nothing happens. So I've actually utilized the 15-minute program to schedule 15 minutes to talk to each of my kids one time a week. And I think they're actually doing the same thing. So it's good to have that on the schedule. And it just makes that communication so much easier. And with regards to, being interrupted, my family is leaving me alone in my office at home. And it's just really working out well. I don't feel that I'm playing catch up all the time. Also, interesting thing, I take 15 minutes a day to kind of exercise and stretch. Though I'm very busy and puttering around the house all the time, I just kind of get into it. So I'm feeling the importance of being able to stretch, get prepared for whatever I'm going to do during the day. And it really is effective. And I'm hoping that I can become more flexible as I get it. They say that's really important. So,
well, that's great to hear. I'm glad that you've incorporated some of the exercises into your other parts of your life. I was hoping that one exercise would ultimately motivate you to do more with it, but it wasn't like I knew it would happen. So I'm glad to see that you did take it and kind of run with it and try to address some other things. And it's great that you're contacting your kids and taking time for them, because I know that can also help your mood. You're doing a great job of taking what we agreed to do here in a very simple format and then applying it. So thank you. I want to encourage you to continue doing these things as issues come along for you.
well, thanks. I know I will, because in fact, it's kind of a game I'm playing with myself now. Just set the timer and then meet the goal. And it really is something that's helping me.
Great. I also want to check in about your mood improvement. We discussed that here and there over the course of our sessions, and talk about any medication or changes and updates you have for me since our last session.
Yes, I actually did see my doctor, and she adjusted my medications slightly, and my mood has definitely improved. And I am less impatient with my family, finding that I can just sit back and take things as they come. And my wife and I have been able to have some quality time together, whether that's via going to a restaurant or driving in the car, but we are spending time that I think is really quality time, and I'm really enjoying that. And I'm just finding out I'm just catching up with her weekly, and I'm not worrying as much, which I find really helpful.
That's great to know. That's great to hear. Thank you for sharing that. I do agree that time is so precious. And when we talked initially, the first couple of sessions, you talked about how you value your time and how it's not ever really been a problem for you. So that's sort of what was stumping you and I guess caused you to come to begin with. You obviously really value your family, you value your downtime, and I'm really proud of what you've accomplished. And how do you see yourself now that you've made these types of improvements?
Well, it wasn't something I didn't think I could do, but I was having such a difficult time, I guess, self-starting. But you've been so helpful. Pardon me. The act of, simply setting a timer is such a simple idea, and yet it's made quite an impact. I think I see myself as a little more, I guess, well-rested. I'm feeling a little more rejuvenated and knowing that I have this time sort of set aside, and then that's the time to do it. That's the time when I'm done. It alleviates a lot of stress and anxiety that I may have. I'm not as distracted, and basically, as I mentioned, my mood has improved.
That's great news. So any other kind of issues you're having at work or home where you've kind of been ruminating on getting things done, or do you feel, halfway there, 3/4 way there? Do you feel like you've got this anxiety and distraction and ability to focus under control?
I believe I do. I think the tools that you've been helping me with have been very, very helpful in me working on that. And I feel that I'm in a really good place right now.
Okay, that's so great to hear. I'm so happy. And I hope that you share in how great I'm feeling about what we've accomplished, because as you know, we talked about last week in the previous that these sessions at some point will come to an end. And we talked about how insurance companies work. And initially you were only approved for these 8 sessions, which means today is our last session. I wanted to spend a little bit of time talking about how the last session, how that phrase or terminology feels to you. How are you dealing with that? Are there any complications from your thoughts around that? Are you feeling good, bad, indifferent? I definitely want to make sure that we end this on a good note.
Well, honestly, I do have a slight sadness about it, but mostly I'm happy we were able to help me get over that hump. I do find that I'm happier about my progress, and I feel very strongly that my family does too, and they're proud of me, which is kind of a big thing. And I just feel that it made such an impact on what I'm trying to do. I think I see myself as a little more interested in doing a lot of different things and knowing that I have the time to do these things, right? My thoughts are more organized. The encouragement you've given me, I really feel has helped me to get back to my place and get my thoughts organized and all that stuff. And going back to my doctor and having my meds evaluated was just so important and helpful. And my travels, excuse me, my travels have gotten so much better too. I'm not filled with that anxiety about getting there. Am I going to be prepared? Because it's just helping me organize my thoughts before things to make sure that things are going to go in a way that's planned and organized. And I feel really comfortable. I feel very comfortable with that.
Well, I think I'm really pleasantly surprised to hear all this about, the fact that you said earlier that you had thought about even quitting, or, what's the point of all this kind of stuff? And can I handle this on my own? And I don't know if you're a changed man or not, but hopefully, time will tell that you can at least return to some degree of normalcy about, how you felt before you were under all this stress and how you were really sort of managing everything really well. And then the feelings you were having about not being able to get it done, like I said, because of the value that you have about work and your work ethic. And so I know that can be very disappointing in oneself when we can't seem to get it all done. And we've always done that. So thanks for sharing. And like I said, I'm so encouraged by what you're sharing. So the last session, doesn't mean you've lost someone who's in your court. The ball remains in your court. So if you ever need assistance again, then I want to encourage you to reach out. What I can do is if there's something I think I can do for you, then I will be happy to re-engage with you and start sessions again and deal with whatever it is that, you think we need to accomplish. Or if you need a referral, I can provide that for you. I cannot necessarily see direct family members for you. So I would then refer, if you were to consult me about a family member or something, I would refer them outside of, my area. So, but if you and I wanted to address some things in the future and I felt like I could help you with that, I would certainly take you on as a client again. And And obviously I have colleagues that would do that as well. So your continual improvement is what's most important to me, no matter who's helping you. So if I can be an asset, I want to remind you that I am always here for you. And you've embraced these sessions. You've made it somewhat easy on me as a student therapist to be able to help you with some new solutions. And, it's always good to be able to knock it out of the park a little bit with a client and have them be really happy at the end of our sessions. So thanks again.
Well, you're welcome, and thank you. And I just like it that this last session isn't a huge, goodbye. It's more of a, I feel it's more like a see you around kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I like that. I like that attitude. And not every client can have that attitude. There can be a lot of fear and sadness and, anxiety about it ending and maybe not feeling like I've got everything I need to move forward. But I think in your case, you have the tools to continue to manage your stress level and to continue adding on to this, creative solutions and problem solving that you've taken to a whole new level that we didn't really talk about in session. You've taken a very simple idea of noticing how long something is lasting and how long something's taking you and making it very tangible by using this timer and taking it to, personal relationships and things, which I think is very important. So feel free to share that tip with anybody. You've worked on how to manage your time. You've worked on how to manage your worries and your stress level. You've learned to communicate it better with your family and sometimes even have some difficult conversations. I know being able to tell your wife, I'm not available to you at certain times of the day when you're home, may not have been something that you wanted to try. So to me, the last session is sad somewhat because it signifies that my client doesn't necessarily need me as much anymore. So, but it also, there's a happy time for me. I've made some strides, together with you. You've achieved some of your goals that you stated early on in the first couple of sessions. We've tweaked here and there. So I've got some personal pride and professional pride about, what we've accomplished and whether or not we're headed in the right direction. So how would you assess your progress over time and have we accomplished what we really set out to do? Are we still on that same, track? Are there any things left to be said?
What I can share with you is that this therapy has been great. It's funny, the interesting part of this all that when we started talking about how I didn't have any time and all that kind of stuff to finish things. And as you already alluded to earlier, I wanted to quit these sessions after the first couple of ones. I thought, how is this going to help and how can I continue? I mean, therapy is a time commitment. And as you know, I was having some time commitment issues and it was one thing versus another thing, which is really difficult for me. And I understand without a little pain, though, there's no ultimate gain. And I feel that I'm pretty happy that I was able to spend this time with you and allowing me to get my work done and helping me to find a way to get my work done properly and in a timely fashion. And all that stuff that I was talking to my wife about, knowing when to go to work and how am I going to get to work and what am I going to do and kind of putting my anxiety on. So it's good that I was able to you were able to help me bring it together using an organization and timing and setting time aside and all that was just really, really helpful. And, it's all weighing heavily on me and you helped direct me and get me on the right path to make it work for myself. And, nothing beats an egg timer. And I think I've come a long way from the kitchen egg timer to where I am today. So thank you so much. It's really been a great benefit.
Good. How has your wife reacted to some of your improvements? How is she doing with all of this with you, the changes that are occurring in you? Or is this all a good thing?
Well, it definitely is. She has been having a hard time, speaking of hard times, and going through grief after losing a family member. And so, my inability to sort of coordinate myself really would be affecting her as well. So the fact that I can take that ownership of my stuff, pardon me, take the ownership on my part kind of alleviates a whole area for her to not have to worry about because she has a lot to worry about. And, having gone through grief myself, I mean, I understand how important it is to stay focused and deal with it and work with it and work on yourself to help. And not that you ever get over grief, but working on it herself. And so I'm just one less thing for her to worry about. And that really is a big accomplishment. So it's helping, helpful in our family and in our marriage, certainly. And then we take this time that we have out to spend with each other. It's been very valuable and very helpful for her and me.
Well, I'm glad to hear that she's doing better as well, because I know when you're doing better, she's ultimately probably going to be doing better as well, because you described a long-term relationship and you guys are a team. So I'm glad that some of the other things that were happening as you were making these improvements were also, helping with the relationship as well. I know you initially had a fear about speaking with her about, don't interrupt me and whatever, and all those kinds of things. So I'm glad that you confronted that fear and had maybe a difficult conversation, because you've been so attentive to her. But in this case, what was behind the fear really didn't pan out. It sounds like she's been very supportive.
Right.
So
yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but
no, go ahead.
I appreciate you bringing that up, because I share with my wife a little bit about what's going on in my therapy, and I appreciate being able to talk to her a little bit about it, because it's been helpful. And again, knowing, and I think it's helpful for her to know that I'm doing something about it, because she's obviously doing the same things on her side. So it's really, again, really helpful.
Good. That's just wonderful to hear. Ending this relationship isn't always easy for me. Like I said earlier, I generally like what I do. I enjoy helping others. So when there's a positive outcome, it's a time to celebrate in some way. So I hope that that's part of your takeaway as well. Sometimes though, the post-counseling relationship can be a little awkward. I know we ran into each other this last weekend and at the Mexican restaurant. And I wanted to talk to you about that, even though it is our last session. The relationship we have is ours. It's not our spouses. It's not my colleagues or your friends or whatever. It's ours, and it's private. I don't share with anyone who you are. Just wanted to reassure you that. I acknowledged you, and that was it. And you nodded back. That was it. That's all that normally I will do. I don't tell people how I know you. In a small neighborhood, we're likely to run into each other on occasion. So just know that what we have is private and confidential. My husband knows what I do, and I just tell him, you're someone I work with. He doesn't have any idea the people that might come into my life, or the colleagues that I might have here and there. So, you're good with me, and I hope that I'm good with you, and that you felt like that was handled appropriately.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate you bringing that up, because as I mentioned, I share with my wife a little bit about my therapy and, what I'm doing and what's going on a little bit, but I certainly do appreciate you not coming over to the table, and that moment, and would have definitely been a little bit awkward. So thank you for that.
Well, that's my standard operating procedure. So I'm glad that it worked out for you guys and you were able to enjoy your dinner. And I was happy to see that you were enjoying dinner with your wife. I know that's taken a long while for you guys to be able to get the time to do that. So while we're wrapping up today, we only have a couple of minutes left. I want to do a little role play with you. It's kind of fun. And I think you can relate to it. I was just thinking about, as we were talking, how do you break up with a client? This is always a difficult thing. And in your case, it may not be a difficult break, but I think wrapping it up with something a little fun to do may make it memorable. And also, in case you ever need me, you'll remember this. So would you like to do a role play with me? Just a quick.
Sure. Okay.
Okay. It won't be too silly. So I want you to imagine that you're on an airplane and 30,000 feet in the air. You've been on the plane a couple hours, and you've been chatting with this person you don't know next to you, a stranger. You've learned a little bit about that person, and they've learned a lot about you. Maybe you have been sharing a lot more, and they've been doing a lot more listening. Maybe this person is older, more wise, whatever, but you've done more talking. And so you don't know a lot about them, but they know a lot about you. Has this ever happened to you?
Oh, all the time. Absolutely.
It is an interesting thing that happens on airplanes. It's sort of like when we go to our therapist, for instance, or when we go to get our haircut. So I'm glad you can relate to that. So in this case, you've shared with this stranger some of your stressors. You've talked about your kids. You've told them about your wife. You've told them about your hectic life, about how you're trying to juggle all these different priorities. And in my seat as the stranger, I've given you some thoughts on that. So the pilot announces we're going to land, and we need to buckle up. So you got the scenario?
Okay, doke.
Okay, I'll start. So, looks like we're going to land here in a minute, Mark. I really enjoy getting to know you on this flight. Looks like you have a really busy life, but you always have the best of intentions. So I enjoyed hearing about your wife and your kids and your home and your recent move. I think you're actually doing pretty well from my perspective, considering all the things that are happening in your life right now. You should probably give yourself a break on occasion when you're trying to get too much done. So I want to wish you the best of luck on your trip today, and hopefully you'll have safe travels on the way home. It's been a real pleasure getting to know you, and maybe we'll run into each other again. So what might you say to this?
Well, I would say, thanks, Catherine. It was really fun, and I certainly enjoyed getting to know you today. And I hope I didn't, talk too much. You actually give me some pretty good ideas that might help me. So thanks. Really appreciate it. My wife also will appreciate it because it's me getting out a little and getting more organized and reducing my stress level. That's got to be helpful. She worries about me. So there you go. So I was really fortunate to sit next to someone who could be as helpful as you were to me. And for that, I'm very thankful. Best of luck to you and safe travels as well.
Thanks. Well, you really didn't take up too much of my time, so don't worry about that. Just want to let you know I love meeting new people, and I take this flight every day. And there's always someone interesting sitting next to me, and I don't mind lending an ear. You've got my card, and if you ever need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. I'm here on this plane all the time, every day, and in the same seat.
Well, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. I learned a lot in this brief amount of time with you. I guess I got lucky today at seat number 7, right? You take care, and I might run into you again. I'll keep your card, and I appreciate you being available.
Thanks, Mark. Safe travels.